And good evening. I'm your host, George Pardos, and welcome to VRS, the VRS Heroes Program. So, in the coming weeks, we're going to do some broadcast and where we're going to show people some kinetic movement. And one of the things that has happened recently, and I've seen this because it's in the age of the YouTube gurus who don't know what they're talking about. They wind up teaching recovery, and what they do is in the recovery program they they wind up doing some things that are wrong. That's basically the way to say it. They start teaching these things, and they're completely wrong. So I'm going to give you a prime example, and this has probably happened to all of you at one time or another. um, you have a shoulder injury and you go into the gym, and what they want you to do is lateral raises, but they do it with weights. Here's the issue you do with that. If you go into if you've got an injured labrum rotator cuff and you do something with weights, you have to go through the whole motion of the weight, and you have to drop it. The problem is with this is that if you are doing these movements, then the problem that happens is you risk a chance of getting hurt more so than if you did it with other movements. So the proper way to get back and to do something or to heal after you've um how am I going to recover from you're a daisy if you do. So anyway, you the way you recover is you you go through the range of motion that you want to to go back to, but you do it slower. And basically, one of the ways to do it is with resistance bands. And the reason I'm going to bring this up tonight and why this is important to a lot of veterans, there's a lot of veterans out there that have gotten hurt, they've gotten injured, and one of the things that happens from it is because they're hurt and injured, it affects their ability to move, but also and it hurts their headspace. And what I tell people is, listen, if you're going to do something, if you are going to do, if you're going to recover, if you're going to come back from an injury, you don't do it by not moving. That is one of the biggest misnomers, is that people think that they can come back by, oh, I'm just going to lay on the couch and not do anything. That's the worst thing you could do possibly. What you have to do is you have to do small movements, and you have to go through that range of you have to go through that range of movement with some resistance, not at 100% resistance, but maybe say 30%. So the resistant bands were originally the first person I ever got to see using resistance bands in my lifetime. Now, I'm not going to give them, there are other people out there. But when we went to Moscow and wrestled in the Moscow Cup in 1990, I saw Karelin using the resistance bands. And it was the first time ever that I saw the bands being used, not for training, not for and not even rehabilitation, but we started seeing them, and we wrestled at the Moscow University. I think it was called it's Moscow Institution. It doesn't exist anymore, so I'm trying to remember, but it was called the Moscow University of Sports. And they and a lot of the things that they did were they were showing some of the workouts, and we were like, wow. And one of the things that had happened in 1988, there's a guy by the name of Fred Hatfield, Dr. Squat, and he had gone there, and that was the first time that he had seen them use Innocent, which is a thing. It's a supplement, brought it back. And one of the things that they had done, there's a gentleman that by the name, his Anatoly Pisarenko, who um, and who happened to be one of the biggest, large super heavyweight, but pound for pound was one of the strongest humans ever. And they were showing some of the things that he was doing, and then they started bringing back. And so, what I am going to cover tonight is that when you are rehabilitating, you need to go slow, but before you start getting on, before you do anything else, you need to keep your range of motion moving. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to have the resistance bands at the eccentric and the concentric movement. So you need to all the way out, all the way in. And the reason is you want to know where the joint is hurting. Now, one of the things that we have a tendency to do, and this is something that I'm going to cover tonight, if you don't, I'm going to use the Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight. Now, whether this is true or not, it's up to you whether you want to believe it or not. But in round 7 and 8, Pacquiao looked different when he was, when he was moving. One of the things that he said after the fight was that he had a shoulder injury and went to move forward. And he said he couldn't get his right hand off. And he could not get his right hand off. Now, for those of you that watch Pacquiao, he does this thing, and the best way I can describe it, he throws the left jab, he turns. Why do I dye my mustache? What are you talking? Listen, boo-boo, I do not dye my mustache. This is Greek. Our beards go gray, our mustaches stay full because of the Ouzo, and they don't, we don't have to dye our hair. And unlike, guys everywhere else, the Ouzo keeps our mustaches from going dark. Damn heathens. So Pacquiao would throw this little right hand, and it was very effective. And he's beat some very good guys with it. The problem was that against Mayweather, he said his shoulder was hurting. Here's one of the things that injuries do. Injuries change your motion to both execute and your trust in it. So one of the things that I'll give you a prime example. If you watch some quarterbacks in the league, when they go down with a knee injury, when they come back, they have a tendency not to throw as, they try to force the ball. And the reason is because they can't plant on one of their feet. So their timing is off. That is why it's important when you come back from an injury that you trust your trainers to say, hey, yes, the joint is fine, because the first thing that you do is you don't trust your own joint. And because it's been hurt, you baby it, you change motion and you change direction in order to accommodate the sprain or the injury. And oh my God, Eugene, that literally, really go blue. Seriously, stop. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut in the dead of winter. So, and then now I'm going to transfer this into, veteran. We come back from, we get injured. And one of the things that I'll give you a prime example. A lot of guys have lumbar injuries, L3, L4, L5 in the military. It's from lifting heavy things. It's from jumping. It's from carrying, a 100-pound pack. And they wind up getting one of the things that does, though, is that it actually hurts. They have to change their walk to accommodate that. So when you have to change your walk to accommodate an L3, L4, L5, what you wind up also getting is you have problems with your sciatica, you have piriformis syndrome. That means you can't lift. And as a result of that, you change your walk because of a bad back. It's the same thing. And I'm going to tell you this. I've seen guys with bad shoulders because for whatever reason, they have to change their shooting stance because of that they've been hurt with, they have a shoulder or they have, some sort of, shoulder neck injury. So they can't, they can't their rifle. They can't get into the, good shooting position. And that affects it. So what do you do in those situations? Well, there's a couple things you do. Number one, you find out the axis of where the joint is hurt the most. And you start working through accommodation to strengthen the joint, the muscle through that. And the best way of doing that is one of the things I say is use resistance bands. Number two is you use movement, water therapy, water resistance. And one of the other things that you have to accommodate is, and I'll say this, and I hope it comes across the right way. Be careful when you take painkillers, muscle relaxers, gabapentin, whether it's Percocet, Oxycontin, it numbs the pain of the joint. Then what you wind up doing is you over exaggerate the injury because you don't feel the pain. So I've seen guys that are, they think they're healthy, or that the joint or their injury is healthy because they're taking, Oxycontin, and then they go out and do something that is stupid. They, and you know what, Nicholas, that's a very, our body has natural cannabinoid receptors. And that is one of the reasons why THC and or CBD oil, or CBD, whatever you want to call the CBD complex, helps us, get back to normal. It helps with depression. It helps with, with whatever, it helps with inflammation of a joint. It acts like, for those that get on CBD, one of the things that you take to get the inflammation down is naproxen. Well, the problem with naproxen is sooner or later it eats up your stomach lining, and people don't talk to you about that, but it does. CBD does not, and it acts in the same way as naproxen does, or magnesium. Magnesium acts in the same way. It acts as a diuretic because what the body is doing is putting blood around the joint to keep mobility from moving, so it doesn't injure the joint more. That's the short end of it. So with that, what I tell people is, if if the pain is enough that you're taking a painkiller, don't exercise, or use the least amount of work that you can. Because the reason is, you will overwork the joint, and you will cause more damage because you think the joint is healthy, or the injury is healthy, because you've taken a painkiller, and then you don't realize that you decimate the injury to do so. That is one of the issues behind it. It's Ouzo. I don't spend on Just for Men. This is Ouzo. Ouzo I don't use mustache dye. This is Ouzo. Okay, not it's olive skin makes it good kin. Damn heathens. So the going back to it is that people get on painkillers, then they go on they think that normally they would be benching 250, and they're on a painkiller, and they've got a maybe their torn labrum. Milk thistle is a great thing. And you go underneath a weight, and you go to say 225, and you think you're okay, you get up there and you tear it even more. So one of the things that the way that you train a muscle after from an injury, or a joint, is you start doing higher reps. And the reason for that is you want to do volume training for injuries. That is and I'm going to tell you this, there's people that disagree. We did it at Ohio State. We've done it at Westside Barbell. Volume makes up for, for work, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to stress the joint um, to to put it past the point when it's not healthy, because the second time you hurt the injury is going to be worse than the first. So, and we had a rule at Westside: three things that tell the truth: yoga pants, 1 rep deadlift max, and little kids. And so you try to do a 1 rep max on on an exercise, and you're not completely healed. I've seen guys end their careers that way. I saw a guy, try to come back, and was squatting not a lot of weight. For him was 650, but he wasn't ready. Goes down, rips his. My God. Our hat stands for Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, and so he get back. He tried to do 650, rip his patella tendon, and was done squatting for a long time. So, and this is why I go back to this. It's that you and you got to go to you've got to then understand that 1 rep max, or heavier weights when you come back, can injure you because you're stressing the joint to to the maximum level. So the best way to come back from an injury is at 10 or 20%. And of course, that depends on a person. But if let's say that you're a 300-pound bencher, you have a 300-pound bench. Well, instead of coming back and trying to do 200, because that's a lot of weight, even if an injury, just go 60 pounds, do 50 pounds, or even just the bar, which is the bar is 45 pounds, and so when you do that, what it happens, you let your body accommodate to getting back into shape, and then you're not stressing it. So, and you over exaggerate the movement. So if you are, let's say, you're used to benching 300. Well, if you're just doing 45 pounds and you're moving the bar, you're not risking any injury for it. And this is the thing that I say to people, your recovery has to be slow. Otherwise, if you don't, you run the second risk that you run is that it messes with your headspace. I can't bench 300. You can't bench 300. Are you saying you can't bench 300? Yeah, you're probably right. You can't bench 300. Now with those little banana pepper arms you have. So you run the risk of then of hurting the joint, and then it messes with your headspace. So we tell people when they're hurt, you need to take your time in recovery, because when you're focusing on recovery is getting healthy. Is not only getting healthy body wise, no need to but you need to get healthy mindset wise. And it's the same thing with that you're talking about veterans that have been injured. Is one of the things that they think is, and what we used to have this thing at Ohio State called Day One, and people have used it across different platforms, but it's basically when you get a guy back on the mat, or back into the to the gym, or you don't focus on what they can't do. What you do is you focus on what they can do, because you're the first day back after an injury, you're not going to throw a kid into doing live wrestling. That's stupid, because you don't know where their injury is. So you do, let's say that instead of even drilling, where you're practicing moves, you just do shadow wrestling. See how you feel. Okay, you can do the setup. You can you can do some movement. You can bend. You can lower your levels. And okay, we'll stick with that. First few days back, we'll see how that feels. And then you slowly get them back into, into to doing live. And you got to remember that you can only train at above 90% for 21 days. That's it. After 21 days, if you start training over 90%, you wind up running the risk of what's central nervous system shutdown. Now, the only people that have gotten away with this, and I say this because there are people that go, well, what about the Bulgarians? You're not a Bulgarian. You're not the Bulgarians took the elite 1% of the world's lifters and put them through that program. So when people say, and this is the other thing that bothers me too, is people see things on YouTube and they think that they can do it because they've seen a guy on YouTube do it. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of people on YouTube and Instagram that post stuff that are faking it. I've seen people do, I used to know how much plates were. I thought, one big plate was 45. Now they're using the rubber plates. I mean, I saw a guy, what I thought was deadlifting 550. The plates the plates he was using only added up to 315. And I'm like, okay, no wonder you're able to move like that. And so there are people that exaggerate, there's guys out there that are legit. Larry Wheels, if you want to go, if you want to YouTube watch him, he is one of the most legit power lifters out there. Now there are guys out there that try to mimic him, and they just don't do they're not doing the right thing. But hey, you know what? You guys are right. I had to I picked a communist. I'm sorry. Hey, like I said, you guys, sometimes even in the dead of winter, blind squirrel finds a nut. So also the other thing is to keep in mind is that when you're watching some of these YouTube videos or Instagram videos, if they're trying to sell you something, be careful that the information isn't to sell you a product rather than to give you validation. And what I mean by that, there are some guys out there that are coaches that give away. Dave Tate, prime example. Dave Tate, Elite FTS, he gives away a lot of information for free. Why? Because he's a good dude. Louis Simmons gives away a lot of information for free. Why? Great guy. Kerry Colat has, some of the guys that do some of the wrestling videos. They give you a lot of information for free because it's what they do. As a coach, that's what you do. The problem is that some of these people on Instagram and on YouTube are trying to sell you something and to hook you into a program, and then you're not learning anything else on there. I'm going to look this guy up for a second, and I'm going to give you a prime example. So just hold on one second. All right. So there's a guy, and I wanted to bring this up, and this is why you've got to be, kind of be careful with this. I've got the whole pack in the back. I've got a whole pack of crayons. I don't understand why you just one bowl. Seriously, look at me. Do you think I just got there with one bowl? There's a guy out there by the name of Brad Castleberry. And and I want to see I want to pull him up because this is a prime example of why you don't trust people that you see I'm going to pull this up on YouTube just to have this so I can show you. So this guy is that all right. So this guy's name is okay. So I'm going to do this real quick. Share screen window. Let's see, Chrome tab. Okay. So this guy right here is this guy is Brad Castleberry. This is the guy on the left, and this is why again it goes to where they use these fake weights and stuff, and the reason I say this is that these guys, when they're using all this fake weight, you think that they're using real weight, and they're not. And I say all of this is because, again, you've got to be careful of where you're getting your information from. And again, the best way to heal is small movements, light weights, full range of motion. And that is literally the best way of doing it. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt the joint, and then it's going to take you longer to recover. So I'm going to close with the next couple minutes, and I'm going to say this. Number one, if you are injured, and work on motion first, work on small motion, whether it is to, whether it's, if you can't run, walk, do small motions first. If you're going to run, run at small loads, 10%, 20%. If you're going to lift at smaller loads, 10%, 20% max. Then you start slowly building up. What you don't want to do is, rush to get back, and that's ego. And the older that you get, the more likely that is for you to do that. Number two is when you are trying to recover, you need to rest. You need to, get therapy, get heat therapy, massage therapy, ART, any of that, and that helps as well. And I say all of this because I've seen a lot of people doing stupid shit because they've seen somebody else do it. And there's a thing, it's called the law of accommodation. This is what I'm going to close up with. One of the ways you stop training, or if you cannot maintain form, then you need to stop training. If you're so tired at the end of practice that you can't throw a left jab out, it's time to quit, because you're going to do bad technique and it's not going to help you anymore. And then as a result of that, then you're going to wind up learning, you're doing bad motion, bad technique, bad muscle memory. Then that only hurts your recovery and your training. And that's why I said, if you're too tired to keep your arms up, nothing good is going to happen. You need to stop, then go get rest and then come back. That's why sometimes you're going to have to train, if you are going to compete, a couple times a day to do that. But going back to it, when you're trying to heal, when you're trying to get better, the best way of doing it is to, low percentages, lots of volume, get used to the movement in the joint and in the muscle, then slowly add from it, because that is been proven the best way to to get better. Anyway, this is your host, George Pardos. Big shout out to Veteran Trash Talk. There's some good guys over there, and we will talk again. And again, I wish you guys nothing but the best and success. And we will see you here tomorrow for Ron Ripley and the Riplonians. And I wish all of you a great and wonderful night.